Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be speaking about how seeking the approval of others in order to gain connection with them is the very act that actually prevents true connection. So we come into this world and we're essentially conditioned to seek the approval of others, and we're essentially taught to be and show certain things that will make others approve of us. And there's generally never any mention of whether these things are actually who you are and whether these things are actually authentic. There's just a very strong focus on gaining people's approval and being what will gain others' approval. And for most of us, when we're born into this world, we are conditioned with that very early on. We're conditioned very early on to believe that having others approve of us is extremely important, and there is never any mention of whether you are actually being real and whether or not what you are showing others is actually who you are. We're conditioned to focus on being and showing all these different kinds of things that will make people like us and make people approve of us. And this conditioning works because this idea convinces us that if we make others like us, we will gain connection. But in this video, I will explain how seeking others' approval in order to gain connection is the very thing that prevents actual connection. And so for many of us who are on this journey, some people just go on their entire lives seeking others' approval and kind of not really confronting the fact that they are not actually being authentic and they are holding back parts of themselves or putting on things that aren't actually there and aren't actually who they are. But for most of us on this healing journey, we come to a stage where we realise that there can be no connection where you are not being authentic, because any connection that occurs when you are being anything less than authentic is simply a connection to what you are pretending to be, not to what you actually are. They are simply connecting to a version of you that is either you putting on things that aren't actually there, you pretending to be certain things to gain approval, or a version of you that is holding things back. It's the same thing really, it's not real. Whether you're holding things back or you're putting on things that aren't there, it's showing a version of you that is not actually who you are. In other words, the thing we have been conditioned to do to gain connection is the very thing that loses us true connection. There can only be true connection where we dare to be real. And this is true self-love, this is self-commitment, choosing to embody your truth, even in situations where you know it may create conflict, polarity, and even rejection. This is you truly choosing yourself. This is you saying, I will not abandon myself, I will not hide myself beneath a mask. That will be the only thing people will connect to anyway if I'm wearing it. And contrary to what our conditioning tells us, this is the act that actually allows true connection. Because this is the act that allows true authenticity. And like I said, there can be no connection where we are not being authentic. If we are not being real, nothing can connect to us. It can only connect to the mask we are wearing, the thing we are pretending to be. It can only connect to that watered down version of us that is holding back everything we actually are and is therefore presenting something that is not what we actually are. We convince ourselves that seeking approval is a good idea because we have convinced ourselves that it gains us connection when it actually does the opposite. And there's nothing wrong with this desire for connection. It's just that when we're unconscious with this desire for connection, it leads us to do things that in fact prevent true connection, like seeking people's approval. When we are in a place of seeking the approval of others, we are in a place where we are susceptible to being things that we are actually not in order to gain their approval. So where this comes from is absolutely not a negative thing, but when we are not conscious with it, it manifests in negative ways that actually causes the opposite of what we are trying to achieve. When we are pretending to be something we are not by either putting on something we are not or holding back things that we are, because they both have the same effect, nothing can connect to you because they're not seeing you. This is why, as we heal, we need to, and we usually do, develop the strength to say, I will embody my truth, no matter what. Even if it means I create conflict with people, because naturally, you know, when we stand in our truth, I've spoken about this before, we become polarizing. You know, when you say this is who I am and this is what I think, naturally you become polarizing. And we have to have the strength to say, this is who I am, and I love myself, so I will not abandon myself, so I will embody my truth regardless. I will be rejected for who I am rather than accepted for all the things I am not, but that others want me to be. We need to have the love for ourselves, to have that commitment to ourselves. To say, I will never abandon you, just to gain something that is a pale reflection of true connection. A connection that doesn't even have a place for who you really are. Because this is not just about connecting with others. This is about connecting with yourself. It's about having the self-respect to say, I will not abandon myself for you. I will not abandon myself for your shallow approval. It's about connecting to yourself. It's about your own self-love and self-respect that causes you to no longer be willing to do that shit just to gain something that is absolutely not connection. Because our connection to others and to life itself is always determined by our connection to ourself. If we are not connecting that deeply with ourselves, we cannot connect with others. If we are not facing ourselves and accepting ourselves beneath the masks we've been wearing, and loving and accepting ourselves enough to remove those masks and make that commitment to ourselves, we cannot connect with others because we won't even show ourselves to others. It starts with you, and it is about you and the relationship you have with yourself. Because the relationship we have with anybody else is always determined by our relationship with ourselves. You can only connect to another to the degree that you are connecting with yourself. Constantly being something you are not is like holding your breath when it's natural to breathe. When every urge within you just wants to let go and breathe. That's what you are doing when you hide who you are. When you hide things about who you are, or you put something forward that is not who you are. Realize that seeking and doing things to gain the approval of others is the very thing that actually prevents the thing you are attempting to achieve, which is connection with yourself, with your life, and with others. Because it all starts with you and your relationship with yourself and your level of respect, love, and therefore commitment for yourself. I really hope this video has helped you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.